since the steel mills closed. I was elbow deep in engine grease, trying to coax life from a carburetor that had given up hope sometime around Clinton's first term when I heard my wife's voice drifting through the garage window. "God, Derek, he's so much bigger than Nick," Vanessa purred into her phone, her voice carrying that breathy quality she used to reserve for me. "I mean, everywhere that counts?" I froze, wrench halfway to my mouth to hold the flashlight. 23 years of marriage, and she's discussing another man's anatomy like she's reviewing a restaurant. "The video we made last weekend?" She giggled, actually giggled like some sorority girl. "It's incredible, Mona. I've never felt so alive. Derek knows exactly how to handle a woman." My sister-in-law Mona's cackle crackled through the speaker. "Aren't you worried Nick will find out? Men are so suspicious these days." "Please." Vanessa's voice dripped with contempt. "Nick barely knows how to work the TV remote. He'll never figure out I saved it to our shared cloud drive. Besides, he's too busy playing with his pathetic little boxing gym to notice what a real woman needs." I set the wrench down carefully, my hands steadier than they had any right to be. 23 years, a daughter in college, a mortgage we'd struggled through together, and she's making home movies with some guy named Derek. The old me might have stormed inside, demanded explanations, maybe thrown a punch at the wall. But the old me was apparently married to a woman who existed only in my imagination. This new version of Nick Thompson was going to be much more creative. I wiped my hands on an oil-stained rag and walked to my laptop, still balanced on the workbench where I'd been ordering parts. Our family cloud account opened with a few clicks. Vanessa had insisted we share everything for transparency. The irony wasn't lost on me. There it was, uploaded 3 days ago. Weekend fun, private. I didn't watch it. I didn't need to see my wife of 23 years getting railed by some trust fund pretty boy to understand what was happening. Instead, I did something much more interesting. I selected the video file and began sharing it. Vanessa's law firm email list, all 47 attorneys, paralegals, and support staff. Her college alumni group, her book club, her yoga class, the PTA mailing list where she'd served as treasurer for 6 years. Send, send, send. Each click felt like landing a perfect jab. Precise, devastating, and absolutely irreversible. My phone buzzed. A text from our daughter Sophie at State. "Dad, what's wrong with Mom? She's getting crazy messages." I typed back, "Ask your mother. She's the expert on family entertainment now." The garage door rumbled open behind me. Vanessa's heels clicked across the concrete, sharp and angry. "Nick, what the heck did you—" She stopped mid-sentence, seeing my laptop screen still glowing with her contact lists. "Problem, honey?" I turned to face her, noting how her power suit looked expensive enough to feed a family for a month. "You seem upset." Her face had gone white except for 2 bright spots of color on her cheeks. Her phone was buzzing like an angry wasp in her manicured hand. "You sick bastard," she whispered. "You sent my private video to everyone I know?" "Private?" I laughed, and it came out darker than I'd intended. "Sweetheart, the moment you decided to star in an amateur adult movie while married to me, privacy went out the window. I just helped you find a wider audience." She lunged for my laptop, but I snapped it shut and held it against my chest. Now. No need to get physical. Save that energy for Derek." "I'll destroy you for this," she snarled, her lawyer voice in full effect. "I'll take everything. The house, the gym, every penny you've ever earned." "With what reputation?" I gestured to her still buzzing phone. Hard to play the wronged wife when half the county just watched you getting bent over a kitchen counter by someone who isn't your husband. She slapped me then, hard enough to make my ears ring. I didn't flinch. "Feel better?" I asked. "Because this is just round 1, Vanessa. You wanted to humiliate me behind my back? Let's see how you handle it when everyone's watching." Eddie Kowalski was waiting for me at Thompson's boxing gym the next morning, coffee in one hand and his phone in the other, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Jesus Christ, Nick," he wheezed, still laughing. "You broke the internet. My wife's book club is going nuts. Half of them are calling Vanessa a hoe. The other half are asking for Derek's number." I unlocked the gym and flipped on the fluorescent lights. The familiar smell of leather and sweat was comforting, honest. No lies lived in this building. "It's not funny, Eddie." "The heck it isn't." He followed me to the office, where I started my morning routine of checking accounts and scheduling. "You know what they're calling you on Facebook? The loser crusader? There's already a meme with your face on Captain America's body." My computer screen filled with notifications, missed calls, text messages, friend requests from strangers. I ignored them all and pulled up the gym's membership roster. 3 cancellations already, all from wives who belong to Vanessa's social circle. "Let me guess," I said without looking up. "The respectable ladies of Millfield think I'm some kind of pervert for exposing my wife's affair." "Some do." Eddie's voice got serious. "But you'd be surprised how many are Team Nick. Turns out Vanessa wasn't as popular as she thought. Word is, she's been pretty high and mighty since making partner." The bell above the front door chimed, and I looked up to see Derek Ashford himself walking into my gym. He was everything I'd expected. 6'2", perfectly styled hair, wearing a suit that cost more than most people made in a month. Trust fund written all over his pretty face. "You must be Nick," he said, extending a manicured hand. "Derek Ashford. I think we need to talk." I looked at his hand like he was offering me a dead fish. "About what? Your starring role in my wife's midlife crisis?" Eddie snorted with laughter, and Derek's jaw tightened. "Look, I know you're upset, but what you did yesterday was completely out of line. Vanessa is devastated." "Vanessa is devastated?" I stood up slowly, noting how Derek took a half step back. "Good. My wife of 23 years is sleeping with some trust fund baby and filming it for posterity, and she's devastated?" "We're in love," Derek said, like that explained everything. "What Vanessa and I have is real. What you two had was just comfortable." The word comfortable hit me like a sucker punch. 23 years reduced to comfortable. "You know what's comfortable, Derek?" I walked around the desk, enjoying how he kept backing toward the door. "Your daddy's money, your fancy apartment downtown, your BMW that's probably worth more than my house. This isn't about money. Everything's about money with guys like you." I was close enough now to smell his expensive cologne. "But here's the thing about comfortable, Derek. Comfortable means I know exactly how to hurt you." His face went pale. "Are you threatening me?" "Threatening?" I smiled, and Eddie later told me it was the scariest expression he'd ever seen on my face. "I'm just getting started." Derek practically ran out of the gym, and Eddie burst into applause. "That was beautiful, Nick. You had him pissing himself." My phone rang. Vanessa's ringtone, Gold Digger by Kanye. I'd said it as a joke years ago when she started making more money than me. The joke wasn't funny anymore. "What?" "Derek told me you threatened him." Her voice was ice-cold professional. "I'm calling the police." "Good luck with that. Tell them to bring popcorn when they watch your audition tape." She hung up on me. Eddie was watching me with concern. "You okay, buddy?" "Never better." I grabbed my gym bag and headed for the heavy bags. I've got some energy to work off. By Thursday, the video had gone viral locally. Someone had shared it to a Millfield Drama Facebook group, and from there it spread like wildfire through social media. I couldn't go to the grocery store without getting stares, some sympathetic, others judgmental, a few openly amused. The gym's phone rang constantly. Half the calls were from reporters wanting quotes about digital revenge in the modern marriage. The other half were from potential new members who'd heard about the badass gym owner who destroyed his cheating wife. I was replacing a torn heavy bag when Sophie walked in. My 21-year-old daughter looked like a younger version of her mother. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same stubborn jaw. But where Vanessa had grown cold and calculating over the years, Sophie still had warmth in her face. Usually. "Dad, what the heck is wrong with you?" She dropped her purse on the floor and crossed her arms. "Mom is having a breakdown. She can't go to work, can't leave the house. Her career is ruined." "Her career?" I set down my tools and faced her. "Sophie, your mother made a private video with her boyfriend and stored it on our family computer. I didn't ruin her career, she did." "You sent it to everyone she knows. That's psychotic." The word psychotic hung in the air between us. My own daughter, looking at me like I was some kind of monster. "You want to know what's psychotic?" I kept my voice level, but I could feel the anger building. 23 years of marriage. I worked 2 jobs to put your mother through law school. I took out loans against this place to help her start her practice. And she repays me by screwing some rich boy and filming it. Sophie's face softened slightly. "Dad, I know she hurt you, but..." "She didn't hurt me, Sophie. She humiliated me. There's a difference." I sat down on the bench press, suddenly feeling every one of my 47 years. Your mother made a choice. She chose Derek over our family. I just made sure everyone knew what that choice looked like. She's my mother. And she's my wife. Was my wife. I looked at my daughter, seeing Vanessa in her features and hating myself for it. Which one of us do you think has more right to be angry? Sophie picked up her purse. She wants to meet with you, tonight, at Flanagan's. Flanagan's was the dive bar where Vanessa and I had our first date 24 years ago. The irony was probably intentional. Tell your mother I'll be there at 8. I stood up and went back to the heavy bag. And Sophie? You might want to ask her about the other videos. What other videos? I hit the bag hard enough to make the chain rattle. Ask her. Flanagan's hadn't changed much in 24 years. Same sticky floors, same neon beer signs, same smell of cigarettes and broken dreams. Vanessa was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her sister Mona and her best friend Tina Walsh. They'd dressed for war. Power suits, perfect makeup, matching expressions of righteous indignation. A trio of suburban Valkyries ready to tear me apart. I ordered a beer from Mickey, the bartender who'd been serving drinks here since the Carter administration. He gave me a sympathetic nod and slid the bottle across the bar. Evening, ladies. I sat down across from them, noting how they'd positioned themselves like a tribunal. This feels familiar. Didn't we have a similar conversation when Sophie got caught drinking in high school? Cut the crap, Nick. Tina leaned forward, her voice sharp with anger. You've destroyed Vanessa's life over a moment of weakness. A moment? I laughed and took a sip of beer. Mona, didn't you tell me they've been screwing for 6 months? Mona's face went red. That's not... I never said... Actually, you did. Yesterday afternoon when you called to tell Vanessa that Derek's ex-girlfriend was spreading rumors about his performance issues. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my notes. Quote, at least you know he's good for more than 6 months, unlike his last 3 relationships. The silence at the table was deafening. You recorded my phone calls? Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. I recorded everything after Tuesday. Amazing what you can learn when you start paying attention. I set the phone on the table. Did you know Derek owes his daddy $200,000 in gambling debts? Or that he's been cheating on you with his personal trainer? Tina stood up abruptly. You're lying. Am I? Ask Derek about Rebecca Martinez. 24 years old, works at Elite Fitness downtown. Blonde, fake tits, drives a red Mustang that Derek bought her last month. Vanessa's face had gone white. How do you know about Rebecca? Same way I know about the white powder Derek keeps in his glove compartment. Same way I know about the other married women he's been filming. I leaned back in the booth, enjoying their shocked expressions. Turns out Derek has quite the collection. You're not even his best work, Vanessa. I don't believe you, Vanessa said, but her voice lacked conviction. I pulled up a photo on my phone, Derek and Rebecca kissing outside a restaurant downtown, and slid it across the table. Taken Tuesday night. While you were home crying about your ruined reputation, your boyfriend was consoling himself with his backup plan. Mona grabbed the phone, looked at the photo, and cursed under her breath. Tina snatched it from her, stared at the screen, and slowly sat back down. You son of a witch, Vanessa whispered. You knew about her and you didn't tell me? Why would I? You made your choice, Vanessa. You chose Derek over our marriage. I'm just making sure you get exactly what you wanted. She started crying then. Not the elegant tears of a wronged woman, but the ugly, mascara-running sobs of someone whose world was collapsing. Part of me wanted to comfort her, the part that remembered 23 years of shared history. But that part was getting smaller every day. What do you want? Tina asked. Money? The house? What's it going to take to end this? End this? I finished my beer and stood up. Ladies, this is just getting started. Vanessa wanted excitement, wanted to feel alive again. Well, congratulations, you've never been more alive than you are right now. I left them there, 3 middle-aged women crying into their wine glasses, and walked out into the rain. Friday morning brought a process server to my gym. Divorce papers, restraining order, and a lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Vanessa was playing hardball. Eddie read over the papers while I worked the speed bag, my hands moving in a rhythm that helped me think. She wants the house, half the gym, and $50,000 in damages, he said. Plus, she's claiming you're stalking her and Derek. Stalking? I hit the bag harder. I haven't been within 100 yards of either of them. She's got photos of you at the restaurant Tuesday night. Says you followed them there. I stopped punching and turned to face him. I was having dinner with my lawyer. Same restaurant, pure coincidence. Your lawyer? Janet Morrison, best divorce attorney in the county. I grinned at Eddie's surprised expression. You didn't think I was going into this without professional help, did you? The gym door opened and Janet herself walked in, a sharp-faced woman in her 50s who'd built a reputation destroying cheating spouses in court. She was carrying a briefcase and wearing the expression of a shark who'd smelled fear. Nick, we need to talk. Your wife's attorney just called with a settlement offer. Already? The papers were just served an hour ago. Janet sat down on the bench and opened her briefcase. She's scared. The video going public was bad enough, but now that Derek's cheating is common knowledge, she's lost all her leverage. She wants to settle quickly and quietly. What's the offer? She keeps her retirement accounts and half the house equity. You keep the gym and your pension, no alimony either way, and she drops the lawsuit. Eddie whistled. That's not bad, Nick. Better than you'd get in court. I shook my head. Not interested. Nick, Janet's voice carried a warning. This is a good deal. If we go to trial, there's no guarantee. I don't want a deal. I sat down across from her. I want justice. Justice? Janet closed her briefcase. This isn't about justice anymore, Nick. This is about revenge. And revenge is expensive. How expensive? She named a figure that made Eddie choke on his coffee. That's if we win. If we lose, you could end up paying her legal fees on top of your own. What if I told you I had evidence that Derek has been blackmailing other married women? Video evidence of him threatening to expose their affairs unless they paid him? Janet's eyes sharpened. Do you have such evidence? I pulled out my phone and showed her a series of text messages I'd screenshotted from Derek's phone. Getting access to his accounts had been easier than I'd expected. The same password he used for everything, including the cloud storage where he kept his insurance policies. Jesus Christ, Nick, how did you get these? Derek left his phone unlocked at the gym Tuesday. I may have borrowed it for a few minutes while he was trying to intimidate me. That's illegal. Is it? He was in my place of business, threatening me. I felt unsafe. I documented the threat. I showed her another screenshot. Look at this one. Derek threatening to send photos to Maria Gonzalez's husband unless she pays him $5,000. Janet studied the messages, her lawyer brain calculating angles. There are 6 different women here, all married, all being extorted. 7 if you count Vanessa, but she was paying in trade instead of cash. This changes everything. Janet stood up and started pacing. If Derek's running an extortion racket, Vanessa could be considered a victim instead of a co-conspirator. Or, I said slowly, she could be considered an accomplice. Look at the dates, Janet. Vanessa started her affair 6 months ago. Derek's blackmail scheme started 5 months ago. She helped him identify targets. Eddie leaned over to look at the phone. Holy crap, Nick. Half these women are in Vanessa's book club. Exactly. I put the phone away. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was helping her boyfriend extort our friends and neighbors. Janet sat back down, her expression grim. Nick, if this is true, we're not talking about divorce court anymore. This is criminal conspiracy. Then I guess Vanessa should have thought of that before she decided to film herself getting screwed by a blackmailer. The gym door opened again, and Sophie walked in. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad, Mom wants to talk to you. She says it's important. Tell your mother to talk to my lawyer. She's in the hospital, Dad. That stopped me cold. What? She took pills last night. Not enough to, but enough to scare everyone. Sophie's voice was shaking. She keeps saying she's sorry, that she never meant for any of this to happen. I looked at Janet, then at Eddie, then back at my daughter. 23 years of marriage, and it had come to this. My wife in a hospital bed, our daughter crying, and me holding evidence that could send them both to prison. Which hospital? Millfield General, room 314. I grabbed my jacket. Eddie, watch the gym. Janet, hold off on filing anything until I get back. Nick, Janet called as I reached the door. Be careful what you say. Anything could be used against you later. Story of my life, I said, and walked out into the rain. Vanessa looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and IV lines. Her sister Mona was sitting in the corner, red-eyed and clutching a tissue. They both looked up when I walked in. Nick! Vanessa's voice was hoarse. I didn't think you'd come. Sophie asked me to. I stayed near the door, not trusting myself to get closer. How are you feeling? Like an idiot. She tried to smile, but it came out broken. The doctor says I can go home tomorrow if I promise to see a therapist. Good. You need help. I know. She looked down at her hands. Nick, I'm sorry for all of it. Derek, the video, the things I said about you. I was angry and stupid, and And you helped him blackmail 6 other women? The words hit her like a physical blow. Mona gasped and dropped her tissue. What are you talking about? Vanessa's voice was barely a whisper. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. Derek's been running a blackmail operation for months. Photos, videos, threats to expose affairs unless the women paid him. And you helped him pick the targets. Vanessa stared at the phone, her face going white. I didn't know he was... Didn't know? Vanessa, look at the dates. You introduced him to half these women, you vouched for him at book club, invited him to parties, made sure he had access to vulnerable, unhappy wives. I thought he was just being friendly. Bees, I put the phone away. You knew exactly what you were doing. You were his accomplice, his recruiter, and when he got bored with you, you would have been his victim. Mona stood up abruptly. I think you should leave, Nick. Actually, I think you should leave, Mona. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, Vanessa said quietly. I signed the papers this morning. Did you? I sat down in the chair Mona had vacated. That's interesting, because according to my lawyer, you haven't responded to our counteroffer yet. What counteroffer? I leaned back in the chair, enjoying the confusion on her face. The one where you confessed to helping Derek extort money from 6 women, testify against him in court, and give me everything in the divorce. In exchange, I don't turn this evidence over to the police. You can't be serious? Dead serious! You have 24 hours to decide, cooperate with me or go to prison with your boyfriend. Vanessa started crying again, but these weren't the manipulative tears she'd used during our marriage. These were the tears of someone who'd finally realized how deep a hole she'd dug for herself. He said he loved me, she whispered. He said we were going to be together. Derek doesn't love anyone but himself. And money, mostly money. I stood up. 24 hours, Vanessa. Choose wisely. I left her there, crying in her hospital bed, and walked back out into the rain. My phone was buzzing with text messages. Eddie, Janet, Sophie, even a few reporters who'd somehow gotten my number. But the most interesting message was from Derek himself. We need to meet. Tonight, I have something you want. I texted back, Flanagan's, 10 p.m. Come alone. His response was immediate. Delete those screenshots, and I'll give you something better. I smiled and put the phone away. Round 3 was about to begin. Derek was already at Flanagan's when I arrived, sitting in the same booth where I'd confronted Vanessa and her allies 3 days earlier. He looked different, nervous, sweaty, his usually perfect hair disheveled. The trust fund prince was finally showing some wear. You look like heck, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. You've destroyed my life. His voice was shaking with rage. My father cut me off. My business partners are demanding answers, and the police want to question me about some BS extortion charges. Bees? I signaled Mickey for a beer. Derek, I have screenshots of you threatening to expose Maria Gonzalez unless she paid you $5,000. How is that BS? Those messages are taken out of context. Really? What's the context for pay me or your husband sees the photos? Derek reached into his jacket and pulled out a tablet, setting it on the table between us. I have something better than context. I have leverage. The tablet screen showed a video file. Nick Thompson, boxing gym, security footage. My blood ran cold. What is that? Security footage from my building. Tuesday night, when you broke into my car. Derek's confidence was returning. Slashing tires, dumping fish guts, urinating on the upholstery. That's destruction of property, vandalism, and about 6 other charges. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was calculating. He was right. The video would be damning in court. Here's the deal, Derek continued. You delete those screenshots, drop the blackmail accusations, and convince Vanessa to get back together with me. In exchange, this video disappears. And if I don't, then you go to jail, lose your gym, and I still get your wife. He leaned back with a smug smile. Face it, Nick. You're out of your league here. I stared at the tablet for a long moment, then looked up at Derek's satisfied face. You know what your problem is, Derek? Enlighten me. You think everyone else is as stupid as you are. I pulled out my own phone and showed him the screen. See this little red dot? I've been recording our conversation for the last 5 minutes. His face went white. I can't what? Record someone who's trying to blackmail me? Someone who just admitted to having me under surveillance? I stopped the recording and saved it. Derek, you just confessed to extortion on tape. That recording is illegal. Actually, it's not. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of without telling you. I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks for the confession, by the way. My lawyer's going to love this. Derek lunged across the table, grabbing for my phone. I stepped back and he crashed to the floor, taking the tablet with him. The screen cracked when it hit the concrete. Oops, I said. Looks like your leverage just got broken. Derek scrambled to his feet, his face twisted with rage. You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, I do. I pulled out a thick manila envelope and dropped it on the table. Bank records, Derek. Yours and your daddy's. Turns out extorting married women isn't your only source of income. He opened the envelope with shaking hands, his face going from white to green as he read through the documents. Embezzlement from your father's company. Fraud charges in 3 different states. Outstanding warrants in Nevada and Florida. I sat back down, enjoying the show. Did you really think I'd come after you without doing my homework? How did you get these? I have friends, Derek. Friends in low places who know how to find information. Friends who don't like pretty boys who hurt working-class families. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave town tonight. You're going to stay away from my wife, my daughter, and anyone else I care about. And if I ever see you again, these documents go straight to the FBI. And if I don't? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Then you find out what happens when you mess with a man who has nothing left to lose. Derek stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed the broken tablet and headed for the door. He stopped at the threshold and turned back. This isn't over, Nick. Yes, it is. I raised my beer in a mock toast. Have a nice life, Derek. What's left of it? He left without another word, and I sat alone in the booth, listening to the rain against the windows and thinking about 23 years of marriage that had ended in a dive bar with broken glass and empty threats. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. I'll sign whatever you want. Just please don't send me to prison. I typed back. Already done. Check your email. The divorce papers were generous. She kept her retirement account and half the house equity, just like Janet had originally suggested. But she also got something else. A clean slate. I destroyed the evidence against her, deleted the screenshots, and buried Derek's blackmail operation so deep it would never see daylight. Because that's what you do for someone you loved for 23 years, even after they've ripped your heart out and filmed themselves doing it. I finished my beer and walked out into the rain, heading home to an empty house and an uncertain future. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. 6 months later, I was training a new fighter when Eddie burst through the gym doors, waving a newspaper like he'd won the lottery. Nick, you gotta see this! I left Jimmy working the heavy bag and walked over to see what had Eddie so excited. The headline made me smile. Local tech entrepreneur arrested in multi-state fraud scheme. Derek's mugshot stared back at me from the front page. His perfect hair disheveled and his trust fund tan replaced by the pale complexion of someone who'd been running scared for months. Says here he was arrested in Miami trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands, Eddie read aloud. FBI found evidence of embezzlement, wire fraud, and extortion dating back 3 years. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy, I said, but inside I felt a deep satisfaction. Justice had a way of catching up to people, even when you didn't push it along. The gym door opened again, and Sophie walked in. She'd been coming by more often since the divorce was finalized, trying to rebuild the relationship that had been damaged by her mother's choices. Dad, I wanted to tell you something. She sat down on the bench press, looking nervous. I know about the evidence you destroyed, the stuff that could have sent Mom to prison. I stopped wiping down equipment and looked at her. How do you know about that? Mom told me. She's been seeing a therapist, working through everything that happened. Sophie's voice was quiet. She wanted me to thank you for giving her a second chance. Your mother made mistakes, Sophie, but she didn't deserve to go to prison for them. Derek did, though, I nodded. Derek was a predator. He used lonely, vulnerable women and then destroyed their lives for money. Your mother was just another victim. Sophie was quiet for a moment, then looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry I took her side. I should have known you wouldn't do anything without a good reason. You were protecting your mother. That's what children do. I sat down beside her. I'm proud of you for that, even if it hurt at the time. Are you ever going to forgive her? I thought about that question, one that had been haunting me for months. I already have, Sophie. Forgiveness isn't about what she deserves. It's about what I need to move on. Do you think you'll ever get back together? No. The answer came without hesitation. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. But we can be civil for your sake, and maybe someday we can even be friends. Sophie hugged me then, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had my daughter back. Eddie was still reading the newspaper, chuckling at the details of Derek's arrest. Says here he had over $200,000 in cash and a fake passport. Boy was really planning to disappear. Good thing the FBI found him first, I said. Yeah, good thing. Eddie looked up at me with a knowing expression. You wouldn't happen to know anything about an anonymous tip that led to his arrest, would you? I smiled and went back to cleaning equipment. I have no idea what you're talking about, Eddie. Sure you don't. He folded the newspaper and set it aside. So what's next for the famous Nick Thompson? You gonna write a book about all this? How to destroy your cheating wife's boyfriend in 6 easy steps? I'm thinking about it, I said, and I was only half joking. But first, I've got a gym to run and a life to rebuild. The afternoon brought a steady stream of members, some old regulars who'd stuck with me through the scandal, others who'd joined after hearing about the badass gym owner who took down a blackmailer. Business was actually better than it had been in years. At closing time, I was alone in the gym, working through my own training routine, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Thompson's Boxing. Mr. Thompson? This is Agent Sarah Chen with the FBI. I was wondering if you had a few minutes to talk about Derek Ashford. My blood ran cold. What about him? We're building a case against him for extortion and fraud. We understand you may have some information that could help our investigation. I sat down on the bench press, thinking carefully about my next words. Agent Chen, I'm not sure what information I could provide. I barely knew the man. Sir, we have evidence that Mr. Ashford was extorting several women in your area. We also have reason to believe you may have been instrumental in exposing his crimes. I'm sorry, Agent Chen, but I think you have me confused with someone else. If Derek Ashford was running some kind of criminal operation, I wasn't aware of it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Mr. Thompson, we received an anonymous tip that led to Mr. Ashford's arrest. The tip included detailed information about his activities, information that could only have come from someone with intimate knowledge of his operations. That's interesting, but I'm afraid I can't help you. Another pause. Sir, I should mention that we also received some security footage showing someone vandalizing Mr. Ashford's vehicle. The person in the footage bears a striking resemblance to you. I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. Agent Chen, I think I need to speak with my lawyer before we continue this conversation. That's your right, Mr. Thompson. But I want you to know, Derek Ashford destroyed a lot of lives. If someone helped bring him to justice, the Bureau considers that a public service. The line went dead, and I sat in the empty gym, listening to the hum of the fluorescent lights and thinking about the choices that had led me to this moment. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you, MG. Maria Gonzalez, one of Derek's victims. Somehow she'd figured out who had exposed him. More texts followed over the next hour. Women I barely knew, thanking me for something I'd never officially done. Derek's victims, finally free from his threats and extortion. I turned off the lights and locked up the gym, then walked out into the cool evening air. The rain had stopped, and for the first time in months, stars were visible through the clouds. My phone rang one more time. Vanessa, Nick, I just wanted to call and say thank you. For what? For not destroying me when you had the chance, for giving me a second chance to be a better person. Her voice was different, softer, more genuine than it had been in years. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for it. We all make mistakes, Vanessa. The important thing is learning from them. I am learning, every day. She paused. Sophie told me about the FBI calling you. What about it? I know what you did, Nick. I know you're the one who brought Derek down, and I know you could have taken me down with him. I didn't respond, just listened to her breathing on the other end of the line. I spent 23 years married to a good man, she continued, and I was too stupid to appreciate what I had. I hope someday you can find someone who deserves you. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. You too, Nick. I hung up and walked to my car, thinking about second chances and the price of revenge. Derek was going to prison. His victims were free, and my family, what was left of it, was healing. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when I first discovered that video 6 months ago. It was better. I drove home through the quiet streets of Millfield, past the closed shops and empty factories that had once made this town prosperous. The place was still dying, still struggling to find its identity in a world that had moved on without it. But it was my home, and I was still standing. That was enough.